Military expert, retired colonel of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, military pilot-instructor Roman Svitan commented on the issue of the probability of a coup in the Russian Federation and the elimination of dictator Vladimir Putin. In this sense, the Russian rebellion is very fleeting, and a snuffbox can fly into any of Putin's temples. The question is in the forces that can organize it, he emphasized in an interview with Glavred. The expert believes that basically all Russian security forces are in favor of continuing the war because they understand that stopping the fighting will sooner or later lead them to the Hague tribunal. Accordingly, the snuffbox from the security forces can fly into Putin's head only when he starts to slow down the processes connected with the war. That is why the security forces are considered to be the hawks with 3 feathers in their asses. Patrushev, Naryshkin, Gerasimov, and others are posing as hawks, but they are forced to do so, he notes. At the same time, the interlocutor also notes that among the representatives of the Russian economic bloc, there are many representatives for whom war is no longer a mother. After all, its representatives are subject to constant and ever-increasing sanctions. There is darkness ahead, and they understand this perfectly well. And this is precisely the driving force that will try to stop the military actions and prevent the development of negative scenarios for Russia, including the scenario of the collapse of the Russian Federation. They will try with all their might to gather bonds so that their empire, including the economic one, does not fall apart. Such a confrontation, of course, can lead to a snuffbox in Putin's head. The question is by whom, when, for what reason, and for the fulfillment of what tasks. Everything will depend on the actions of Putin himself, Svitan added. Earlier, the question of the possibility of a coup in the Russian Federation arose. Even representatives of the Z public are now afraid to say anything against the Russian dictator Putin, because these words may be the last. Recall that earlier, it was reported that Russia is expecting a coup. The West's strategy aimed at negotiations with Putin is in fact ineffective. It is necessary to work on a coup within the Russian Federation.
Finland's President Alexander Stubb has called Russian leader Vladimir Putin a strategic fool and a military failure for his war of invasion in Ukraine, the Sydney Morning Herald media outlet reported on Saturday. Speaking from his official summer residence, Stubb emphasized that Putin is paying too high a price in the ongoing war in Ukraine, with his troops making very slow progress. I would argue that this is the biggest tactical and strategic mistake in modern history. Putin's goal was to dismantle NATO. Well, he just doubled the NATO border through Finland. I've never seen the EU more united. So, Putin has failed on all fronts, Stubb stressed. The Finnish leader warned that Kremlin's military buildup was likely to continue as the Kremlin was unlikely to return to peaceful democratic state. They will not revert into a peaceful liberal democracy. And second, they will continue a military buildup, Stubb stressed. He also commented on Russia's military buildup near the border with Finland, saying, "We can observe, we see the movement of the soldiers, we see the buildup of the infrastructure. It's normal. We did the same." Stubb stressed Finland's long-standing policy of military readiness. Russia's military buildup on the border came after Finland's decision to end its decades of non-alignment and to join the NATO following full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. Fighters with a Kurdish separatist militant group that has waged a decades-long insurgency in Turkey began laying down their weapons in a symbolic ceremony Friday in northern Iraq, the first concrete step toward a promised disarmament as part of a peace process. According to Associated Press, the Kurdistan Workers' Party, or PKK, announced in May it would disband and renounce armed conflict, ending 4 decades of hostilities. The move came after PKK leader Abdullah Öcalan, who has been imprisoned on an island near Istanbul since 1999, urged his group in February to convene a congress and formally disband and disarm. The ceremony took place in the mountains outside the city of Sulaymaniyah in northern Iraq's semi-autonomous Kurdish region. Helicopters were seen flying over the area as proceedings were getting underway. The state-run Iraqi news agency reported that the process will take place in stages, with a group of party members initially laying down their weapons symbolically. The disarmament process is expected to be completed by September, the agency reported. The PKK has long maintained bases in the mountains of northern Iraq. Turkish forces have launched offensives and airstrikes against the PKK in Iraq and have set up bases in the area. Scores of villages have emptied as a result. The Iraqi government in Baghdad last year announced an official ban on the separatist group, which has long been prohibited in Turkey. It was not immediately clear how many fighters took part in Friday's ceremony. Officials had earlier said that the number might be a few dozen.